It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is someone who understands that leadership is not just about having the answers. It's also about creating environments where people can feel safe enough to contribute, collaborate, and speak up. Shannon Russell is a business coach, corporate team facilitator, author, the host of the Second Act Success podcast, where she shares inspiring stories and practical strategies to help professionals navigate career transitions, launch businesses, create work that feels meaningful and aligned. But before stepping into entrepreneurship, Shannon spent more than 16 years as a television producer. But eventually, she realized that she wanted to stop producing everyone else's vision and start producing her own life. This journey led her to create Second Act Success, where she now helps women embrace change, rediscover purpose, and build careers and businesses that bring both fulfillment and impact. She's also the founder of Build Better Teams Consulting, where she works with organizations to strengthen communication, collaboration, and team culture through the Lego Serious Play methodology, which is a unique hands on approach that helps teams unlock deeper conversations and clearer thinking. Today's session is especially important for women leaders navigating disconnected teams, constant meetings, workplaces where we don't feel comfortable sharing what we truly think. In our session today, how women leaders can get their teams to speak up. Shannon's going to show us how to create cultures of trust, openness, and collaboration in our organizations, but perhaps even in our own homes. If you've ever wondered how to create stronger conversations, deeper connection in today's fast paced environment, this session is for you. So please join me in welcoming Shannon Russell to the summit.
Hey, this is Shannon Russell. I am here talking about the communication gap, how women leaders can get their teams to speak up. So, I have a question. Have you ever walked out of a meeting and thought, why didn't anyone just say what they were really thinking? Or maybe even worse, you thought that the meeting went great, everyone nodded, everyone agreed, but then afterward, nothing changed. No action was taken. You went on to your day to day. Well, there is no momentum in a lot of meetings today. And as female leaders, many of us are trying incredibly hard to create workplaces where people feel safe and heard and connected because we have been in meetings where it is long silence, we nod, and then we go back to the usual. And we want to change that. And yet, so many teams aren't able to get there. We find team members staying quiet in meetings, hesitating to challenge ideas, hesitating to talk about what they really think, and they want to avoid those difficult conversations, keeping things at very surface level rather than actually giving feedback. Today's teams are struggling. And I believe that there is a communication gap happening inside organizations because I believe a part of the reason is this. We are trying to solve deeply human problems with methods that no longer work. More meetings, more slides, more tech, more AI. People are talking at you instead of talking with you. And raise your hand if you have been there, because I certainly have. Plus, there's the onside of all of the tech and all of these advancements, which are great, but they're taking over when I believe the talking is more important. But it's how we communicate that makes the difference within our teams, within our leadership skills, within our organizations. So, behind the scenes and in these silos, it's not cutting it. We need to have communication within our teams. This is why I became fascinated with a method you may or may not have heard about called Lego Serious Play. It was created by the Lego Group many years ago, and it is, yes, it includes Lego bricks. But before you say, wait, adults playing with Lego in the workplace, what are you talking about? Let me explain that yes, it's adults, it's executives, it's founders, leadership teams, corporations, nonprofits, you name it. But this methodology brings teams together. And through my company, Build Better Teams Consulting, I get hired to create workshops and corporate offsites and different company retreats and events that bring Lego Serious Play into the organization to bring people together. Now, what happens is yes, you're touching these Lego bricks, you're building, but you're doing it in a way that allows you to communicate differently. It's hands on, it's creative, and most importantly, in my mind, it's memorable. Because communication, leadership, team engagement, it changes the moment people start building their ideas with their hands, not just speaking what they're thinking, but actually showing others what they mean. People finally start saying what they actually think, their actual goals, their actual thoughts, and they are showing this to others in 3D using Lego bricks. These ideas become tangible, they take on a whole new meaning, and it leads to clarity and understanding. Because instead of explaining my idea to a group of people, I'm building it using the bricks and I'm sharing that model with you and with everyone in the room. So now others are not only just hearing what I'm saying, they're seeing it in front of them. Now, before I started facilitating these workshops, I spent over 16 years as a television producer. I worked in New York and LA, and I worked in rooms full of very creative people, very big personalities, fast deadlines, high pressure. And what fascinated me the most wasn't the production and what we were creating to put on your screen, it was the human behavior within these walls, within these meetings. And who spoke up? Who didn't speak up? Who stayed quiet? Who dominated the conversations? And who had the brilliant ideas but never shared them? Now, I was a female executive leading some of these teams. And even when I found myself at the front of the room, leading a conversation, talking about the plan for whatever television show I was working on at the moment, I would realize, or I would find, that these conversations were often male dominated. These men in the group would stand up and talk louder than I would. And I would look around and say, well, okay, what's happening? I'm in charge here. But it didn't matter because always those louder voices stand out in many, many meetings. And I'm sure you can relate in being in similar meetings where the dominant few lead the charge and everyone else stays quiet. And I remember several times where I couldn't get a word in edgewise. And I noticed something over and over again. Just because these people speak the loudest does not mean that they are right. Doesn't mean they're the smartest in the room or they have the best ideas. They just know how to get their ideas out there. So whoever talks first tends to shape that conversation. And as leaders, we've seen that happen, but we have the power to change that within our own organizations. We are able to say no. Those couple of loud people who are dominating may have an idea to share and bring to the table, but so does everyone else. So their loudness, their assertiveness doesn't have to lead that conversation. Instead, it should be everyone talking, everyone engaging, and everyone who influences the direction of that meeting and the goals that come after it. And many people, I've noticed, especially women, see this happening more and more. And we start shutting down. I know I did. And you start saying, okay, well, I guess my voice isn't important here, or I'll just stay quiet and I'll follow the lead of others. And when that happens, you start interjecting less and less, and you feel like there's just not enough air in the room for you to share your ideas. And research consistently shows that women are more likely to be interrupted, talked over, or hesitate to speak up because they don't feel psychologically safe in that environment. As female leaders, I truly believe it is our duty to change this, our duty to make everyone in our organization, everyone within our team to feel safe, feel acknowledged, respected, and heard. So I believe that teams lose valuable ideas and innovation suffers and resentment starts to build within a team when others are not allowed to share. And as leaders, we don't even realize this is happening sometimes if we're not truly paying attention to it. Because silence sometimes looks like team members are in agreement, that they are just quiet because they're complying. They're going along with the idea of the others. But in reality, that's not always the case. They just might not want to compete with the loudness in the room. But I'm telling you that silence is not agreement. And that is something that we must remember the next time we're in a meeting, an offsite, an event, a networking room, that we have to remember that the silence is not meaning that we're all in agreement, that we are all aligned. It's something that we have to pay attention to so that we can make those changes. And one of the biggest mistakes I think that leaders make is assuming that communication problems are solved by encouraging people to just speak up. If you speak up, then we'll know what you're thinking. But for many people in many of these rooms, it can feel risky. You might think, what if leadership doesn't agree with me? What if other people think this is a bad idea? What if I come off as difficult for speaking my mind? Or what if my idea just gets dismissed? And the second team members start thinking this way, they start reverting, they start going into their shell, and they're not willing to voice their opinion. And these are people that you or management has hired. So these are people who have skills, they have talent, you've brought them into your group, but they don't feel safe enough to contribute. So instead of using their assets to your ability, hiring these people and having them share their talents with you, instead they stay quiet. And this is really costing you as a leader, you as that female boss, that woman in charge. It's costing you ideas, it's costing you growth, it's costing you money. And it's costing you the growth of really getting those goals accomplished as a team. Because the best ideas often stay silent. They're around the table. It's those people who are just afraid to speak up because they don't feel safe. So talking alone doesn't unlock that honesty. It's really getting away from presentations and meetings where you just talk at your team members. And it's more slides and all of those things that just allow people to be passive when they're together. We want to start talking less and doing more because that's where you get that honest feedback, that honest reaction, and that engagement. So, how can you, as a leader, as a woman in charge, mend this communication gap and get your team members to speak up? This is where I truly believe that thinking with your hands becomes powerful. And as a Lego Series Play facilitator, I have seen this firsthand, time and time again, how individuals think differently when they build. When people use their hands while processing ideas, they are able to allow their brain to become just more activated. Their creativity expands, they're using their imagination, and ideas can be seen again visually in 3D. And that allows others in the room to become a little less defensive. They're seeing what you're talking about instead of trying to understand. And some people, it's easier to understand visually than to just hear someone speak. And my favorite part about this methodology is that every single person participates. Whereas in a lot of those meetings that we just discussed, so many people stay silent. So in this process of Lego Serious Play, you cannot stay silent. You must participate. 100% of the people, 100% participation. Everyone gets the same bricks, everyone gets a prompt, and they have to think about the answer, build, and then they share. So everyone's on an equal playing field. This methodology is not just for extroverts or builders. It's not just for leadership. It's not just for those fast talkers in the room. It's for everyone. And it gives everyone just a chance to, I would say, relax, let their shoulders down, and know that they are equal with everyone else in the room. There is not that hierarchy. And that room energy changes instantly when we get together because instead of asking, well, who wants to share? No, everyone shares. So, as the facilitator, I say, build your answer to this question. Suddenly, people who barely spoke are building. And then they're explaining their ideas through their models. because they created them and other people are wondering, what does that model represent? So they are visually sharing their ideas with the group, causing their idea to be heard, seen, and then conceptualized. It's honestly very incredible to watch. I facilitated a workshop recently that I wanted to share where a leadership team had been struggling a lot for well over a year. They were struggling with communication, there were different personalities clashing, and the trust was definitely not there. So at first, when I entered, the room felt very guarded. Everyone was kind of being a little bit fake in how they were speaking to each other and to me. And it's that meeting where, okay, yep, everyone says the right thing, everyone's being polite and politically correct. But when I asked them to build a model representing where they saw themselves in their current role as a member of this team, it stopped everyone. There was silence, there was a lot of thinking going on, some apprehension as they were building. But then it all came out when we presented. And one of the executives built a bridge. Another one built a bridge with structures around it, showing that they were in the middle and they felt stuck. One other person that really got us talking actually built this nice little office with a little Lego person off to the side, showing that she felt separated from the rest of the team. And suddenly, without confrontation or finger pointing or anything, these were honest answers that were displaying how each person on this team felt currently. And so we were able to have this conversation and say, okay, well, I see how you must be feeling. And let's dive into that. And so the Lego bricks became the language, not just titles, not the politics, just honesty. And it really became visual. It's hands on thinking that really changes communication when it comes to teams. And people start listening differently. Because when someone explains a model that they built, you're not going to interrupt them like you might if they were just speaking and explaining their idea. You might interject and ask questions. No, you're looking at the model. The one model is there, everyone's looking. Everyone might be interpreting it a little bit differently, but you are explaining what you built. You're explaining your meaning behind it. And everyone's observing in like a very honest, curious way. You ask questions about why they chose each brick, and then that shift really starts to transform that team dynamic. And often they say that when you write things down, when you journal, your head can bring that down to your hands that much quicker, and your ideas become that much more real. And the same thing happens when you're building with your hands or doing anything more creative. And as women leaders, we're navigating something very complex right now. Everything is changing in the workplace. Many of us are leading through uncertainty, layoffs, restructuring, companies closing, burnout that we're feeling within ourselves, just so many changes within just the way that the world is and the way that the workplaces are changing so frequently, so quickly. So at the same time that we're dealing with all of those changes that may be occurring within our teams, we're trying to create that culture where people on our team feel appreciated and they feel connected, they feel valued. But that connection doesn't happen just because you schedule another meeting, just because you have another Zoom. It happens when each person on your team, including yourself, when you all respect each other's time and talent, and you establish a team where there's honest communication, one where each member is heard and they feel comfortable contributing. And this requires you as a leader to really be intentional about creating those relationships and creating that space where everyone feels respected. And by creating that type of culture, you'll begin to see more members sharing because they feel comfortable. You might see more people speaking up because they understand how other people on their team are feeling. And they might want to contribute more because they're feeling welcome to. And they will then share their ideas, which are needed. And those ideas can help you as a team and a company grow because you will then be creating this team and creating this environment that you can thrive in, that you feel proud of, and that everyone on your team will also take pride in and want to be there and want to show up and want to support each other. Now, one thing I've learned from facilitating these hands on workshops is that adults are desperate for permission to be human again at work. And I think, especially now with the onset of AI and apps being everywhere and us being behind screens, we want to have that human to human contact as much as possible. And tech is great, it's got its place. But what about those human to human relationships? Think about it, most workplaces today reward professionalism over authenticity. They reward polished answers over curiosity. Everyone wants to just get things done quicker, under budget, and within time rather than being innovative. But I believe that innovation rarely comes from being perfect, it comes from exploring. So, getting creative is not childish. Play is truly how humans learn. So, we can use our imagination in very innovative ways, and we can come up with new ideas on how to grow and scale together as a team. And then, somewhere along the line, many organizations have forgotten about that. And as you can see here, we've got traditional meetings where, again, the loudest voices dominate. People speak fast or surface answers, very passive participation. And then there are creative hands on workshops and events that you can have for your team where everyone contributes. There's reflection, there's insight, there's engagement, and then there's actually a plan to move forward. Now, I'm not saying that every meeting needs me and Lego bricks. That's not what I'm saying, but there are different ways that you can actually implement this creative, think with your hands mentality into activities for your team. And I'm saying if your team is not speaking up openly, that issue is not communication skills alone. It's that psychological safety and it's trust and it's structure and participation. And that's something that you can change as a leader. It's up to you to create that kind of environment where speaking and sharing feels safe and real. And so, what you can do is think in a metaphor way. So think about um, showing a picture, thinking about those Lego brick models, but you can also do it in a different way. So it might feel easier to say, this model feels disconnected. This model, I'm out here. I feel disconnected from my team right now. You're showing that with your model. It's easier to show it than to say in the middle of the room, hey, I feel disconnected. I feel left out. But by building or drawing or showing pictures of how someone is feeling through a metaphor, it lowers their defensiveness and it increases honesty. So, I'm going to share some ideas on how you can do this within your team. Here are a few immediate shifts that you can take to create some better communication. Number one, stop asking only verbal questions. Instead of saying, any thoughts? Say, write down your answer or your idea. Sketch it, build it, reflect on it first before you respond. So if you're asking, how can we reach our goals by the end of the year? Have them write down their idea, sketch it out, build it, do whatever they can, make a collage, get creative, write a paragraph about it. Then they can reflect on what they created and then they can respond. So it's a more thoughtful answer. And they're getting a little deeper in the answers as well when they do that. This simple activity allows for a pause in the room, and it's a different style of processing a question internally before you share it with the group. Second, you can create equal participation structures in your meetings, meaning everyone shares equally. You're not asking for who wants to share, you're saying everyone will be sharing, and this is how we're going to do it. And that's one of the reasons I love Lego Serious Play, because everyone builds, everyone shares, and everyone contributes. And you can do that in your team as well in other creative hands on ways. Third, make sure that you can get comfortable with talking in those metaphors we just mentioned. Sometimes people can explain difficult truths more safely through this symbolism. Someone may show their Lego model and their sketch or their drawing, and it might feel safer than just speaking and saying it with words. This may feel safer for that team member, and either way, the meaning comes across. Fourth and final, remind yourself that silence in a meeting doesn't always mean that everyone agrees. Just because no one pushed back doesn't mean they're all bought in on that idea. Sometimes it simply means that they don't feel safe enough to disagree. And so you want to make sure that everyone's encouraged to think visually so that they can share and get their ideas and their talents out there. I really believe that the future of leadership for all of us is going to require something different, not more presentations, but more participation. Not all leaders have decided that they are ready to share all of the answers. They really want to lean on their teams to help. Leaders might have a vision, but they need the people on their teams to help them move that vision forward. So leaders know that they have to unlock that wisdom in the room. And your team probably has the ideas that you need. They just might not feel ready or safe enough to share them. So, as a leader, don't control that conversation. Make sure that your team is connecting and communicating. So, the next time your team feels stuck, instead of asking, any thoughts? Or, how do you get people to talk more? The question might be, how do we help people feel safe enough to contribute? By writing down your thoughts, building what success looks like, showing the obstacle that you might see in front of you, and deciding, okay, I'm going to think, reflect, and then contribute. Because when people feel safe, they speak. And when they feel heard, they will engage. And when your team speaks up and engages, that just doesn't create better communication. It creates a better team and helps support you as the leader even more. Now, to learn more about my company, Build Better Teams Consulting, and how Lego Serious Play might bring some fresh ideas to you in your organization, you can find my website here at this QR code. And I also have a free podcast that you're welcome to listen to that's all about building better teams as well. Thank you.
Timely and important conversation. Shannon, thank you for reminding us that communication is not just a workplace skill, it is a leadership skill, especially in today's world where so many teams are navigating stress and change and remote work. The ability to create that connection, it matters more than ever. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from today's session is that strong teams, they're not built by accident. They're built intentionally, brick by brick, aren't they? So thank you again, Shannon, for sharing both practical insight and such an important perspective with all of us today. For everyone joining us, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen, use the link in the chat to access her free gift and continue to learn from her work. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on social media. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. Shannon will respond to you directly. Once again, thank you so much, Shannon, for your time today, for sharing with us this important message.